request everybody to open the link and try to write the revision test based on active and passive voice declarative sentences. Only 10 minutes. Time is 1:45 and submit before 1:55.
Ma'am, can you send the link again?
Sure. Tamanna, I have posted a link in the chat box. Open the link and attempt the test paper and submit before 1:55. Okay? Okay. Why so dull today? Uma Parvati, this is 8A classroom. I request you to leave the meeting. Amin, I hope that you have received the link for writing the test paper.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Nelvin and Parthiv, this is 8A classroom. Nelvin K. Anup and Parthiv VS, this is 8A classroom. I request both of you to leave the meeting. Advait Sinoop, Fadil. Fadil, your 2 questions went wrong. Advait, 3 questions. Advait Murali, only 1 answer went wrong. Advait Murali has scored 9 marks. Very good. Isha Fatima Mirsi, congratulations, 10 on 10 for you.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's Anashwara, 2 answers went wrong. 8 on 10. Henin Nasser, 3 answers went wrong. 7 on 10. Iron, 8 on 10. Pooja Menon, congrats, 10 on 10. Tamanna, only 1 answer went wrong. Good. Adigesh, only 1 answer went wrong. 9 on 10. Good. Vaishnavi, only 1 answer went wrong. Amin, 2 answers went wrong. Suryadev, only 1 went wrong. Three more minutes. Nivedya Rose Femin, congrats, 10 on 10. Tom Joes, 2 answers went wrong. Lynette, what happened? I'm surprised to see your score. I'm not expecting this from you, Lynette. Four answers went wrong. How many of you are there to submit now? 1 more minute. 55, I'll start taking class. Lakshmi, only 1 answer went wrong. Sridev, congratulations, 10 on 10. Ritvik, 2 answers went wrong. It is time. So I request everybody to stop entering things and please please switch on your video and please come to class. Henen, Pooja, Nivedya Rose, Abhiram, Lakshmi Dantakumar, Advait Sinop, Irene Maria, Surya Dev OP. All of you switch on your video. Lakshmi, I can understand your problem, so that's okay. You try to solve it before the next class. Okay. Okay. Abhiram, switch on. Yes. See, children, we were discussing about active and passive voice in the previous class, right? Active and passive voice, imperative sentences in the previous class, isn't it? Isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So today we are going to discuss about interrogative sentence. How to change an interrogative sentence from active voice to passive voice. So first of all, you should know what are called interrogative sentences in English grammar. See, interrogative sentences are in the form of a question. Okay, interrogatives are questions, sentences in the form of a question. Okay, so these questions are ending with a punctuation mark called question mark at the end, right? So these all questions are ending with a question mark at the end. Am I clear? So when your active voice sentence is given in interrogative sentence, remember to give a question mark at the end of your passive voice sentence. So active voice sentence and passive voice sentences are ending with a question mark if it is an interrogative sentence. That is point number one. You cannot use any other punctuation mark with a question. If a question is in active voice form with a proper tense form, when you convert that particular interrogative sentence from active voice to passive voice, you have to end your passive voice interrogative sentence with a question mark. Clear? There is no proper rule. Like we learned two formulae to convert an active voice sentence imperative into passive voice. But in interrogative sentence, you cannot see the formula can be applied to change an active voice interrogative into passive voice. But we have a few points to remember. Okay, the first point, the passive voice sentence, if the active voice sentence is an interrogative sentence, the passive voice sentence also ending with a question mark. Point number two, see, you know that there are two types of questions, right? There are WH questions in English grammar starting with WH words. What, which, where, when, how, who, whom, right? So you know that there are two types of interrogative sentences. The type one is called WH sentences, which we are using to gather information from or about someone. Or if we want to know something, some information from about someone or something, we can use or we can begin our question in the form of WH question, where you can see the presence of WH words in the beginning of such a sentence. Clear? At the same time, if I want an answer, either yes or no from you, definitely I should use an auxiliary verb to begin my question, right? Such questions are called yes or no questions. And you know that do forms are auxiliary verbs, have forms are auxiliary verbs, and be forms are auxiliary verb, isn't it? The do forms in English grammar are called do, does, and did. These are auxiliary verbs or helping verbs, right? At the same time, have, has, had are have forms, and these are also called auxiliary verbs in English grammar, right? Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. And the third one is called be forms. Am, is, are for present tense, was and were for past tense, right? These are called be forms in English grammar. So point number two. Point number one, I said, if your interrogative active voice sentence is a sentence ending with a question mark, you should use the question mark at the end of passive voice. Point one. Point two, if your interrogative sentence is starting with the do forms. What are the do forms, children? I have mentioned now. What are the do forms?
Do, does, did.
Excellent. Do, does, and did. Do, does, and did are called do forms in English grammar. If your active voice sentence is beginning with do, does, did, any of these forms, this cannot be used in passive voice. We cannot use do forms to begin our question in passive voice. If I cannot use do forms to begin my question in passive voice, what can I use it there to begin?
Be forms.
Be forms, excellent Tom Jones. Be forms. We must use be forms like am, is, are, was, were, according to the subject and according to the tenses. I cannot use or do, does, or did. It does not appear in passive voice form. Instead of do forms, we must begin our question with the be form. If the subject is, if the verb is present, you can use am, is, are. If the verb is past or if the verb is given in past tense, you can use was or were there. Clear? Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So point
Yes,
number
ma'am.
1, punctuate with a question mark if it is an interrogative question. Point number 2, or do forms cannot or it does not appear in passive voice form. If your question in active voice is starting with the do form, when you convert or when you transform an interrogative sentence into passive voice, you can begin your passive voice sentence with the be form according to the subject and according to the tenses. Okay, if the tense is past, you can use was or were. If the tense is in present tense, you can use am, is, are. Okay, and also singular subject is and am in present and are in plural. Okay, are with plural. At the same time, was can be used for past tense singular and where can be used for or used with past tense plural. Am I clear?
Yes,
Am I
ma'am.
clear, children?
Yes.
Okay,
ma'am.
this is called point number 2 to remember. And point number 3 that you should remember always when you convert an active voice interrogative sentence into passive voices. If your sentence is starting with have forms, what are the have forms?
Have, has, had.
Very good. Have, has, had. If your sentence, if your interrogative sentence is starting with have, has, had, remember, you don't want to change it. You can use the same have forms to begin your sentence. But one condition, you need to check the subject. If the subject is singular in present tense, if the question is starting with have, you cannot use have with the singular subject, right? So if it is a singular subject, what can you use it there if it is a present tense? Has or have? Has. Okay, has can be used for starting or so for beginning a sentence. Okay, so there is no change. You can use the same has, have, had to begin your question if it is a question which is starting with have forms. Okay, now had can be used with singular and plural verb, right? There plural subject, right? There is no change. Had can be used in past tense with singular and with plural subjects, but in present tense it is not possible. If your subject is actually a singular one, if your question is starting with have, you must change. You must look at the subject position and try to use your brain accordingly. If has is needed, use has. If have is needed, use have. Okay, according to the subject. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Point
ma'am.
number 3 is clear.
Yes,
So let me recap.
Yes, ma'am.
Point number 1, remember to use the proper punctuation mark. Use question mark at the end of the passive voice sentence if the sentence is an interrogative sentence. Okay. Second one, do, doesn't, did. It does not appear in passive voice form. So instead of do, doesn't, did, according to the subject, according to the tenses, you can use be forms. Am, is, are, was, were to begin your question. Okay. Point number 3, I said, if your active voice sentence is starting with have forms, you don't want to change it. You can use the same have forms to begin your passive voice sentence. But remember, always the subject should be matching with or it should be in agreement with the verb. Okay, if the subject is singular, you should begin your sentence with the singular verb. If the subject is plural, you can use suitable plural word form there. Okay, clear? Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now fourth point. What are called modal auxiliaries in English grammar? Modals.
Ma'am, can, could, shall,
Yes,
should,
can, could, will, would, shall, should, all these words, may, all these words are called modal auxiliaries or modals in English grammar, isn't it? Isn't it? So the modals are can, could, will, would, shall, should, may, can, and all. Okay. So children, if your question, if your interrogative question is starting with a modal auxiliary verb, Okay, modal or modal auxiliary verb. You can use the same modal auxiliary verb to begin your question in passive voice. If your active voice sentence is starting with will, when you convert that active voice interrogative into passive voice, there in passive voice, you can start or you can enter or you can begin your sentence in passive voice with will itself. There is no change. There is no need for changing the auxiliary verb, the modal auxiliary. You can use the same auxiliary verb to begin your sentence there in passive voice. That is point number 4. Okay. Point number 5. Remember, I have told you there are 2 types of question. All these we discussed are about auxiliary verbs or about yes or no questions. Now, let us come back to the WH questions. If you have a WH word or a question word in a question, except 2 WH words. See, we can use the same WH word in the passive voice to begin your passive voice sentence, except 2. There are 2 exceptions. Okay, the words like who and whom. Except who and whom, rest of the WH words can be used as the same to begin your passive voice sentence. If your active voice sentence is starting with who, when you convert that sentence into passive voice, remember the who becomes by whom in passive voice. Who is changed into by whom in passive voice. Okay, and at the same time, if your active voice sentence is starting with whom, 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 when you convert the sentence into passive voice, you must begin your passive voice sentence with who, WHO. Okay, so who becomes by whom in passive and whom becomes who in passive. So except these 2 words, these 2 WH question words, rest of the words you can use the same question word to begin your passive voice sentence. Am I clear? Am I clear to you guys?
Yes,
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 ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, Lakshmi, except Lakshmi, I request Ritvik, Abhiram, Nadeem, Advait, Sunub, and Anjana to switch on your video. Suryadev, Opi, your video is not working, it seems. Okay, thank you. Suryadev, you can't switch on your video. Do you have any problem with the camera? Suryadev, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, why you can't switch on your camera? I cannot see you here on the screen. Is that there any problem? Henan, switch on your video. So children, let me explain all these points once again. So these are the points before you convert a sentence from, or before you're transforming a sentence from active voice to passive voice, you should remember all those points. Remember to put a punctuation mark called question mark at the end of the passive voice sentence. And remember, if your question is starting with do forms, it does not appear in the passive. Instead of that, you must use be forms there to begin your question. Okay, point number 3, if it is starting with the have forms, you can use the same have forms to begin your passive voice sentence. Point number 4, if it is a modal auxiliary verb like will, can, could, may and all, you can use the same modal auxiliary verb to begin your question in passive voice. But there is an exceptional case there. Except who and whom, rest of the WH words can be used as same to begin your passive voice sentence when you convert from active voice to passive voice. But when you convert a sentence beginning with the who into passive voice sentence, who is changed into by whom in passive and whom into who in passive. Is that clear, guys?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So let us discuss a few questions now. So I have told you there is no proper formula to apply or to use to convert a sentence from active voice to passive voice. You have only these points to remember. Okay, so let me share a screen for you. Here you're going to get a few questions on the board. Okay, all these points we discussed. Okay, now I am we can discuss the first question. Question number 1 is, did she recognize you? Okay, this is your question. Tell me whether the sentence is in active voice or passive voice.
Active voice.
Active voice.
How can you identify this sentence is an active voice?
Because did
Did come.
The first step before converting any sentence, if it is declarative sentence, if it is imperative sentence, interrogative sentence, or whatever it is, the first step is to identify the verb of the sentence. Okay, to check whether it is in the form of be plus past participle form or it is in the form of a finite verb. Okay, now the turn is yours. You can tell me the verb of this particular sentence.
recognize.
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 Louder.
Ma'am, recognize.
Recognize.
Only recognize.
Did and
Did.
recognize.
Did recognize. See, did recognize is the finite verb here. Okay, we have got the verb. Tell me the tense form of this particular sentence.
Simple past.
Louder.
Simple past.
Isha.
Ma'am, simple past.
Simple past. Did shows that. Did plus recognize shows that. See, you have learned splitting of verbs, right? Recognized become. Recognized become. Did plus recognize, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Rod becomes did plus right. Right? This you have learned in the lower classes, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so rot is simple past form. Recognized is the simple past form. So did plus recognized is also given in simple past tense. Okay, so the tense of this verb is simple past tense. Agree?
Yes.
Are you all agree with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now you tell me the subject of the sentence, because you know when we convert a sentence from active voice to passive voice, subject becomes object and object becomes subject, right? So first of all, you tell me the subject of this particular sentence.
She.
Louder.
Ma'am, she.
She is the subject of the sentence. Object of the sentence?
You.
You. Excellent. You is
You.
the object of the sentence. This board is not working at all. I cannot write anything here. Okay, you is the object of the sentence. Okay, now we are going to change the sentence from active voice to passive voice. Why it is active voice? Because it shows or it has a finite verb in it. Did plus recognize shows that the sentence in simple past tense. We have got the subject of the sentence and we have got the object of the sentence. And remember, the sentence is starting with the auxiliary verb did, isn't it? So I cannot use the same did to begin my passive voice sentence. So instead of did, what can I use here?
B form.
B forms. You know, B forms are am, is,
Are.
are, was, were. Okay. So see children, am is in present tense, is in present tense, are also can be used in present tense. Okay. As the sentence is in simple past tense, I have two preference, was or were. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So tell me which one.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Which one?
Where?
Where? Why where, Adigesh?
And because there are two people in the sentence.
No, not because of that. You can use where to begin the sentence as it is. Instead of do forms, I should use a be form. But the problem is, see, when you change one sentence from active voice to passive voice, The subject goes in the place of object and object goes in the place of subject. So it is you. The subject here is actually you, right? I cannot use was with you, isn't it?
Yes,
Huh?
ma'am.
I cannot use was with you. I can use only where with you. So my sentence is where you. Tell me, where you.
Recognize.
Recognize.
Be form plus past participle form. So where you recognized
By
By
her.
By her.
by
Her.
her.
her. What punctuation mark?
Question mark.
Tell me the punctuation mark. Question mark.
Question.
Okay. So be plus past participle form of the verb. So the sentence is in passive voice now. At active voice, simple past tense, which is starting with did. As in simple past tense, I cannot use did in passive voice. So I can use only be form. Because of you, the subject, I should use a proper verb here. So be form plus past participle form shows that the sentence is in passive voice. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any doubt?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay. So my next question. Have you heard the news? Okay. Have you heard the news? Okay. Have you heard the news? Active voice or passive voice?
Active voice.
Tell me the tense. Tell me the verb and tense.
Have
It is
heard.
simple past.
Yes. Have heard. Okay, we have got the verb. So tell me the tense form.
Present perfect.
Present?
Perfect.
Present perfect.
Present perfect. Say, speak louder. I have already some issue with the system. If you won't speak louder, I won't be able to hear you properly. Okay? So speak louder. So have you heard? Have heard is the verb and it is in present perfect. So we have got the finite verb and we know that the sentence is in active voice. How can we change the sentence into passive? Second step, identify the subject and object of the sentence. Tell me the subject of the sentence.
You is the subject.
Okay, you is the subject.
The news.
The news is the object.
The news is the object, right? Right, you're right. Okay, so we have got the subject and we have got the object and verb. Now, how can we change the sentence into passive voice? Remember, the sentence is an example for present perfect tense. Present perfect tense. You have three boxes with you. Check the column of present perfect active passive and see which word you must use here in the passive.
Been, we should use
Yes,
been.
excellent, excellent. Okay, have you heard the news? How can I begin my sentence?
Have the news.
Have the news been.
Been
I
heard
have a
by
doubt. Is news a singular subject or plural subject?
Singular.
It is singular. So can I use have with the news?
Has the news.
Yes, as it is present tense, I have told you, you must use suitable form, which is actually going in agreement with the subject. Okay, so has
The news.
Has
the
the news
news?
heard by you.
No. Sentence is in
Been
present
heard.
perfect.
Been heard by you.
Been
Heard by you.
excellent. Heard by you. And tell me the punctuation mark.
Ma'am.
Question mark.
Ma'am, one
Question
doubt.
mark.
Okay, someone is asking me a doubt. Wait. Yes, who is asking
Ma'am,
a doubt?
in that
Isha,
subject.
Isha, I have a problem. So you do one thing, you speak louder. Keep your mic in right position, speak louder.
Ma'am, in subject verb agreement, right? We have it is said that.
Could you please speak a little louder, Isha?
Ma'am, now can you hear me? Ma'am, now can you hear?
I can hear, but very low your voice is.
Ma'am, in subject verb agreement, it is there, right? A singular verb which is actually showing a plural thing should go with a
See, the news is actually plural in form. Okay? The news, the word is actually plural in form, but we should consider it as singular. Okay? It is plural in form. News is plural in form, but we are taking it as singular in form. Okay, so now the news is here is actually a singular subject. Okay, so along with singular subject, the news, we can use only singular verb. Okay, so the news, along with the news, we can use only has. The news has. The news has brought by Isha Mercy today to the class group. Okay, so has brought. It is not have brought. See, mathematics. The word mathematics. It is plural in form. Right? Mathematics is plural in form but singular in usage. Right? News. News is good. News are good, it is wrong in usage. Okay, the word news is actually plural in the structure, but it is actually singular in form. Clear? Am I clear? That is why we should use has with news. Okay, news is, news has brought. Okay, is that your question, Isha? What I get
Yes,
from your
ma'am.
voice is like this. I understood like this.
Yes, ma'am.
If you want any clarification, you can ask me more. No
No,
problem.
ma'am, I got it.
Cleared?
Yes, ma'am.
Remember mathematics. The word is plural in actually the structure, mathematics. Right? But it is one single subject.
Yes, ma'am.
Mathematics is tough. News is going out of my hand. Okay, that is why here I have started with has. I cannot start with have. Clear? Am I clear, Isha? Is that enough for you?
Yes, ma'am, I understood.
Okay. Okay. See, children, next question. Your period. Okay, the next teacher has come. Sorry. 2:20. Yes. Sorry, children, the next teacher has come. She's waiting, so I am ending my meeting here. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you,
I
ma'am.
have
Thank
class
you, ma'am.
only for you in the next Saturday, so prepare well.